Hey everybody, welcome back, and I am finally back. Well, I've been back for 2 days from Arizona, but I have been so stinking exhausted and miserable, and I have to get back to work, and life has just been hectic. But a lot has happened since the last time I was on here talking about Sweet Baby Inc. and all the drama and controversy going around about it. And a lot of interesting things have happened. So, without making a whole video on everything else, there's been supposed threats against people's lives, there's been supposed harassment, there's no receipts of it, the gaming journalists are all running cover for these people, and it's everything you'd expect the so-called Gamergate 2 to be. But the weirdest thing now is that this has finally come across the attention of the Daily Wire, Matt Walsh namely. A man who famously has crapped all over the gaming industry for years. He is not a gamer, okay? And I don't think that's putting it mildly. He has written articles about why gaming essentially could lead to real-world violence, even though real-world violence has been disproven to be connected to video games. So, that being said, this information about Sweet Baby Inc., Kim Belair, the CEO, all this stuff has finally come across his desk, and I will say this, I don't want to get in the middle of people who are either on his side or not on his side. I generally like Matt Walsh. I generally like a lot of his opinions. That being said, there is the reality that he is not a fan of video games, so this is a weird thing for him to speak on, but I just want to play a few clips of him talking about this and then get into the controversy sense. So here is Matt Walsh.
That, at least if you were born at any point prior to the 1990s, might be hard to believe. By revenue, the gaming industry is bigger than both the movie industry and the music industry combined. And for the past several years, it hasn't been especially close. The difference is consistently more than $100 billion per year. So video games are a massive market, one that's mostly targeted at young people, of course. But despite those numbers, for the most part, the games industry has avoided mainstream scrutiny. You'll see far more discussion about, say, Sydney Sweeney or Taylor Swift than you'll ever see about prominent video game voice actors and directors who pretty much no one knows anything about.
So I think, unfortunately for Matt, a lot of his unfamiliarity with the gaming world has led to a lot of people criticizing him for, whether you want to say it's unfair or not, for the fact that he is just basically saying, you know, nobody's really talking about this. And there's a clip of him actually saying that nobody in the mainstream has really brought up Sweet Baby Inc. But it just seems like because of the fact that he doesn't exist in the world where gaming is relevant, he didn't realize gaming was such a massive market. He didn't realize it was bigger than movies and music combined. It's like, this is common knowledge to most of us who play video games. But for Matt, it was something he's not familiar with. He does go on to make some good points, and I'll see if I can start off right about here. He gets done looking or watching the Kim Belair video where she talks about threatening people to do what you want.
Of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
So this is how DEI works in every industry, of course. The goal is not to improve the company's product in any way. It's to blackmail companies and threaten them into submission. And in this case, they're just saying it out loud. Pay the DEI tax or we will destroy you. Only in the games industry, where everyone is dumber than they are in every other industry, do they just come right out and say it as directly as that. Along these lines, as you might have guessed, so-called games journalists are somehow even dumber than journalists in other industries too, which is really, really saying something. They're just completely unable to hide their real goals or display any hint of subtlety whatsoever. For example, in response to clips like this surfacing, games writers have produced several articles portraying SBI.
Well, we've talked about the articles before, but I don't want to play too much more of the video. I want to move on to the next part of this. But it is funny that he still sticks with this whole people in the gaming industry are dumber than their counterparts in Hollywood. Journalists in gaming are dumber than their counterparts in other industries. Really weird. I agree with him, but it just seems weird that he is singling out, well, you know, in the gaming industry, they're just dumber than everybody else. It still feels like his bias is showing through. So Grummz, if you don't know who Grummz is, he's the guy that was famously the former developer that was kind of crapping all over the Starfield start screen because of the fact that it was so boring, so bland. It just didn't have any life, any spice to it. So he has been very vocally critical of Matt Walsh's involvement since his video came out about, you know, talking about this SBI stuff and the wokeness in video games, given the fact that Matt Walsh has famously crapped all over video games. He's crapped all over anime. He's crapped all over any sort of art form that he just doesn't understand. So now Grummz has been approached by Daily Wire by a reporter who goes by Greg R.E. on Twitter, And this guy messages him and says, hey, Matt covered Gamergate 2 in a clip of your recent interview on the show today. Elon just posted the monologue. And this is from when I believe Grummz and the guy from Brazil who started the Sweet Baby Ink Detected group were on the Quarterings show. He goes on to say, wanted you to know that we're very interested in this story. Please keep us in mind if you have anything to add or any other ideas. Thanks a lot for your work. Thanks also for your work on StarCraft. My lock sound on my Tesla is the Siege tank sound, so it obviously struck a chord with me. Okay, so Greg thinks he's a gamer, all right? That's what he's alluding to. I love StarCraft. Thanks for your work on that game. Grummz responds, says, awesome, I may have some ideas. So before he can even respond, 2 hours later, or it could be the next day, I think it's 2 p.m. the next day, this reporter comes back and says, I see you want to wage a piss fight instead, so stupid. And this is due to the fact that Grummz has been vocally critical of Matt Walsh, his traditional stance on video games versus the fact that he's now covering it and acting like he's the first person covering it. Again, I'm not saying that's what he intended to do, but that's the way it was interpreted by a lot of people. So Grummz goes, Matt said what he said about games. I'm asking him to be open-minded. Now you're swearing at me. The reporter says, you wrote a snide comment, really stupid comment too. You didn't ask him to be open-minded. What a joke. So Grummz says, sure I did, read my text. Read my next tweet. Greg comes back and says, it's not a secret that Matt doesn't like games. He mentions that repeatedly in his monologue. That doesn't preclude him from talking about the issue. You suggested it does. This is obnoxious, counterproductive, and stupid. Now, this is a reporter asking Grummz for a statement. Grummz says, this is not convincing me that the Daily Wire is not being opportunistic and when you so easily jump to insulting me. The guy responds, all right, buddy, you're a victim here. Right, take care. Now, if you go to his, this is, again, more Matt Walsh talking about how video games are basically terrible and for children and grown-ups shouldn't play them. It's harmful for anybody who plays them, blah, 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 blah. So if you go to his replies to Greg, the guy who works for Daily Wire, in his recent replies to all this stuff involving Elon, Matt Walsh, all this stuff, he's responding to people like Sarah Higdon here who says, I don't really get the dive into video games, to be honest. If you're not a fan of video games, why do you care if they're woke? You're not the target audience anyways. I would make the argument, why would Matt Walsh care if they're woke and say they need to be fixed or, whatever. Actually, in the video, I'm pretty sure he says, just stop having your kids play video games. So his ultimate goal could just be, hey, let video games be woke and don't let your kids play them, which again is counterproductive because it just goes back to Matt Walsh not understanding video games. So Greg responds and says, it's almost like there's a monologue you can watch if you want the answer to this question. Again, just being snide. Down below Grummz here, this guy, Chris Burnett, says, I mean, his previous tweet right before this was a ham-fisted your mama joke. I haven't seen one of those since I was 13. And Greg just like, LMAO. This Chris Burnett guy again responds and says, there's no serious adults in the gaming industry. It's man, children, all the way down. This one is clearly dragging Matt Walsh into the drama to maximize attention. And Greg says, yep, once Elon posted Matt's monologue, they got all offended that their hobby was being covered by someone who doesn't play games. Also likely a lot of jealousy. So they have implied he should not talk about the issue, invented things he said and attacked them, posted DMs even though the DMs match what I said publicly. It's a really bad sign for the hobby that its best, quote, gamer defenders are this immature. So again, massive hostility from people that are supposed to be covering this. Oh, you got the quartering here saying, Matt's been getting dragged for the past 24 hours for proclaiming to be the first to cover wokeness in video games, and he's acting like I'm totally insane for having a laugh at it. And Greg says, Twitter becomes much better when grifter accounts like yours are blocked. And again, you don't have to like the quartering. I don't like all of this stuff. A lot of times I don't usually watch his videos. But the fact that this is devolving into just a flat-out tail-spinning, it's a piss match, basically, is what it is turning into. And it's not just because people are critical of Matt Walsh, it's the response from Matt Walsh's people at the Daily Wire. This thing has gotten far messier than it needs to be. And unfortunately, this infighting, much like anything else, is just going to create more issues than we already have. I'm glad Matt Walsh covered it. I'm glad the Daily Wire is covering it. I'm not happy about his opinions on gaming. But I do think it is something that he needs to be more aware of. If you're going to cover something and talk about rooting out the evil that's in it, you can't do it if you're over here saying, well, video games are stupid and nobody should play them. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this, though. I'm very curious if this is how people feel about this, because honestly, I'm mixed on it. For me, I could take Matt Walsh or leave him. I like some of his opinions, but I think he's way off on this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching the video. We do have 2 channels, one for daily uploads, the other one for more of my live streams and hot takes. Links to both are down below, as well as the ability to join as a channel member for as little as $3 a month, and that'll greatly help us out. Much appreciated. We also have links to our Etsy accounts down below, as well as our website. We also have Locals and Subscribestar. If you didn't want to support us on YouTube, you can support us through those. Thanks again for being here, and we will see you on the next one.